Hello, 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 and welcome to another exciting episode of Zoom Hope Live. I know you missed us last week because we missed you last week. Of course, we are taking an off week simultaneously throughout the month of November. But we are back here, exciting, and today we are going to have a wonderful discussion. How are you doing, London?
Hello, I'm tired. Can I tell y'all the truth? It is
Oh,
Sabbath, and I'm here. I'll be here. I'll be on and ready to have this conversation. I'm excited about the conversation, though.
yeah,
Even though last night and this morning has been busy.
all the way to
Um,
Canada.
yes. So for those who don't know, I spoke at my first conference. Well, that's not true. My first, so there was a young adult conference that's happening still right now, Ontario conference. And so if you want to participate, it's not too late. They still have workshops and breakout sessions. And so I was the keynote speaker for that last night and today. And so I kind of have a lot coming out of me, but we're going to
Yes.
do this today as well because this was planned and this is a necessary and timely conversation. And so I'm ready to make it happen. Of course, as always, please submit your questions. Submit your questions in the comment section, whether you're watching on Facebook or if you're watching on YouTube. You can submit your questions and we will see them. Also, you can submit comments. You can just react, have your raw reaction to the conversation that we will be having for this panel discussion, and we will acknowledge most of those comments.
Yeah.
I won't promise that all of them will be on the screen, but some of them will be. So please submit them there, and we'll let you know that we are paying attention to
Yeah.
you. Also, please share. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram.
Mhm.
And if you're watching this conversation right now, please share it with people. If you're on Facebook and someone doesn't have Facebook, go to the YouTube and get the link there and send it to someone, as we will be having a conversation about Christian service in politics and government. And I believe this is a timely conversation. So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
all I have. What
Yeah.
about you, Larry?
We're going to do a November challenge for our
Okay.
YouTube page. I realize that a lot of persons been watching and so forth, but you just pass through. So while you're there, I want you to make sure you subscribe. And if you're on Facebook, you know what you normally do. So please subscribe and ring the notification bell. We just reached 100 and I believe 9 subscribers. So we want to take that 500 by the end of November. Because you're coming, you're watching, we want to make sure that you subscribe as well. Well, we're going to go now. No, just before we do that, I want you to still, if you have not yet done so, mark the date, February the 6th. We will be having our marriage conference. You can't afford to miss that. It's going to be enriching for yourself as an individual, and of course also for your marriage. I was looking to see if I'll see it across the screen, but please just mark that date, and we want you to know that we are going to plan a great and exciting time for you guys. Now we will go into introducing our first guest. Have our first guest comes on at this time, and that is none other than Dr. Paul A. Scavella. Dr. Scavella, welcome to Zoom Hope Live another time because you have been here before. Um, Tell, of course, those who do not know who Dr. Scavella is, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Pastor Larry. Um, I have been a part of ministry now for almost 40 years. I've served as president of the South Bahamas Conference for 2 terms. Most of the departmental areas. And most recently, I also served as PAL Director, Public Affairs and Religious Liberty. It's good to be here with you. I'm the husband of one wife and 3 adult children. And we're glad to be a part of the experience this afternoon.
Awesome, great, great. So we're looking forward to have a great time with you, and also even to hear you applying your discipline from your coaching experience into this as well. So thank you so much, and it is good to have you on. So who do we have next, London?
Wait, he missed something. Tell us about the justice of peace part, right? This
Yes.
conversation is about Christian politics and government. And nothing that you said speaks to why, you are want to be a part of this conversation and the relevancy it takes for your life.
Yes.
You told us about your positions in the church, and that's great. But tell us about your involvement with politics and government.
Yeah.
Well, in the PAL department, we had to relate a lot to government, public affairs, and all of the activities that go along with that. And so we had quite a bit of experience in relating to government here in the Bahamas.
Okay.
And the justice of the peace makes me a law officer. And if necessary, we can be called to act as a judge if it deems the situation deems it necessary. And so because of this, these 2 areas we had to relate to: government and public affairs. And of course, the church always seeking to ensure that religious liberty is provided for the citizenry.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for explaining that to us. Thank you so much for letting us know that. That's relevant, right? That's relevant bio information. So thank you so much. And then we love to hear more from you in just a moment. Our next panelist for today is Saba. Saba, I would like many of you know her, or at least know her, have been blessed by her ministry as well. But I'll allow Saba to tell you a little bit more about herself. Saba, please do.
Hi, everyone. And thank you for having me. My name is Saba Nwankpah. My professional life, I own a company that does consulting for digital media, live streaming events. My career has always been in media, mostly lifestyle media, Essence and Food Network and such. As of almost 3 years ago, I founded the Wakinda SDA Fellowship, which really stems out of a lot of, well, of course, my history as being a Seventh-day Adventist, but also my professional life. All those things kind of came together in what is now the Wakinda Fellowship. I have yet, I should say, to hold a public office. I do comment a lot about what's going on in politics. So I think that's why I'm here today, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, for sure. And a little bit of your business. You said that within your business, you work with people involved in government and politics, right?
Well, not so much. We do have corporations that are interested in learning about different topics and how those impact the Black community. So we bring in experts, including lawyers and different types of specialties that are able to provide that lens. Those are to multinational companies that maybe don't understand, the American context about certain things. So that is part of our work as well, for sure.
Okay, so I believe you represent all of our voices, because many of us, we have not been able to hold a public office, but we have been very involved in the public office. So Saba, is really good to have you on Zoom Up Live, and we're looking forward to have a wonderful discussion with you being a part of this. Well, our next guest is none other than Mr. Robert Miller. Some of us might just know him as Big Rob. All right, so Mr. Robert Miller, it's good to have you on Zoom Up Live this week. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thanks for having me. Thanks for listening. Hi, guys. I'm Ronaldo. I am a product of Christian education. At Seventh-day Adventist Christian education. Went to Northern Caribbean University, student government president. Jamaica Union of Tertiary Student vice president. Also, I went to La Sierra University in California, where I was in charge of the Black Student Association there. Came back, director for Northern Caribbean University. I'm a trained teacher by profession, director for Northern Caribbean University, Kingston campus, and where I still lecture marketing there along with CMU and VTDI. Also in 2007, I was called to be a senior advisor, personal assistant to the then Minister of Education, now Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. 2018, I was called to serve as a Justice of the Peace in the parish of Kingston. And currently, on September 3rd, 2020, I was elected as Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Catherine. That's a constituency in Portmore in the just election that was just ended in Jamaica. All about youth services. I'm all about, speaking. I'm all about giving advice. I am married to a beautiful wife, Kristen Broomfield. We have one son, Liam Drayson Delano Miller, and God is just blessing us. We are loving each other and growing older with each other every day.
Awesome. Good stuff. Like, so your history, your bio, you went all the way back to college, right? And the different ways that you were a part of
Big college.
Being a part of student government, right? And how those student government positions prepared you to be where you are today, working with Parliament. That's awesome. Thank you so much for giving us that back history so that we can be informed about the perspective that you'll be sharing. Thank you very much. Okay, and then our fourth guest on our panel today. You're muted, so just acknowledge that really quick. So is Aileen, Aileen Butler. If you can just share a little bit about yourself, why are you interested in this conversation? What involvement do you have in government, or have had? Then please share that with us.
Okay, my name is Aileen.
I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, your audio and your visual is not it's not connected.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am hearing you. So I guess it's something on London's side.
Okay, so, go ahead. I can hear her, but you see her lips moving along with her voice.
Yes.
Go ahead, Aileen. Okay, it might be me.
I just am honored to be here. I was contacted by Pastor London earlier last week, and I just thought that I was going to be on just, some people talking about Christians and politics. And I was like, sounds interesting. And I said, sure. Not knowing that I was going to be in the company of a member of Parliament and a Justice of the Peace and Wakinda. My favorite place, Wakinda Fellowship, SCA Fellowship. I just am honored. Thank you for inviting me. I don't know how I got on here, except for maybe Pastor London saw that I have been with the federal government for the United States federal government for 41 plus years. I retired in 2015. I honestly am not really involved in government per se, but I love the idea of politics in government, because isn't that what government is about? It's all about politics. So anyway, I was born and raised in San Francisco many years ago. And I have been married to my husband for 48 years, Glenn Butler, and 48 plus years, and I have three beautiful, beautiful women daughters, and they have beautiful families. So I have 15 grandchildren. I just got my last one this last May, Magnolia. Would you believe? And just a wonderful family. God has blessed me. I was born and raised a Seventh-day Adventist, and just recently found out that I can have a voice in politics just by being on social media. London has probably seen, I have posted some very controversial, I'm bold. I'm bold. So there you go. Anyway, thank you for inviting me.
And Aileen, again, you represent all of our voices because we all go there through social media. It's really good to have you on, and we're really looking forward to get a lot from you as a Christian, as a private citizen, and of course from the experiences that you would have garnered over those many years in the U.S. federal government. Well, it is great to have everyone on. So, London, if you could just please take us into our first discussional question. We realize we have all our regular guests and more. It's good to have you on, and we will definitely be having a great discussion today. So, please take us into our first question, London.
Okay, so here it is. Someone needs to be muted because this sound is not it. I don't know. Is it just me or can you guys hear it too? Okay, you guys heard it as well. Okay, so our
It
first
just
question,
stopped.
yes, whoever muted last, it was you. Okay, so some Christians and other religious groups abstain from voting because their hope is in the God that they serve, right? So these are Christians and people of other religious groups that obviously are not Christian. So just carry the whole gamut. And so they abstain because their perspective is that their hope is in the God that they serve and not in governmental or political powers. Why don't some of you take that same position? Being that, why are you still involved in the conversation of government and politics? And Saba, if you can start us off, that would be great.
Of course. I understand that this is a multinational conversation. So I kind of just want to speak in my own context within the United States. I have a hard time with the faith and no action balance that I think is a larger Christian debate that we have, right? Like, should we just pray and not go to the doctor? There are some extreme, or what I would consider to be extreme, ways in which people talk about faith in a way to absolve them from needing to do their duty or do something, in the human realm, right? And I don't particularly have a burden for other people to do as I do, or to have my convictions, right? But a friend of mine recently shared on social media something that explains exactly how I have been feeling, which is to say that God is in control, but God is not controlling. And so in the US context, where people can vote, where people have options as to everything, every layer of their experience on this earth, be that what's happening in the public schools, how the funds, which we are, as Jesus said, to render to Caesar, are distributed. I think that is an opportunity to be the stewards of the earth that God kind of commissioned Adam and Eve to be. So that's my personal conviction. And that's why, and again, in the United States, where I have the option to be involved, I know there's other countries that don't. I take it to be my duty to be informed about what the options are and to be thoughtful about the general direction that some of these choices would put our country, our children, our future in, and how that also, again, as a citizen of a country that seems to have ripple effects across the world, what impact that has on the least of these and the prisoner and the poor. These are the ways I look at it, and which compels me to be involved as much as I can.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that was a thorough response and I appreciate it. Just talking about the fact that you can be involved. So you do get involved and you care about it. A part of it is loving your neighbor, right? Getting involved in the things that are going to impact your neighbor, your children, right? You mentioned that. And so, yeah, I completely receive all of what you said. Thank you so much for that thorough response. Dr. Scavella, would you like to respond next? You seem kind of frozen. Okay.
Maybe I should place this whole matter in a historical context in terms of the church.
Okay.
We know that from a historical point of view, the church has had many positions on how we relate in politics or in the political arena. And the fact of the matter is, my grandfather used to say, anytime you have two people engaged in a conversation, it's political. All right, because people have varying views and opinions on matters, and then how we execute our opinions and views. And so folk have had various views of what politics involve and how we are to respond to it. All right, the church is very clear in its behavior at times that the church cannot be aloof to the environment in which it exists. And hence we have a whole department called Public Affairs and Religious Liberty. We track what's happening at the White House, what's happening in the Senate, the Congress, and we encourage our people around the world, our leadership around the world, to be aware and to be engaging. Now, when we move from the administrative level of the church down to the membership, we get all kinds of views of what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. And that, I think, is a spin-off from what we in the theological realm refer to as the social gospel.
Oh no, he was saying good things and the internet kicked him out. So he'll be back. He'll be back, everybody. In the meantime, Rob, if you can, Robert Miller, if you can pick up, I don't know if you want to respond to something that he was saying, something that Saba was saying, or respond to the question all on your own, that would be great.
Zoom hope. I think there was no hope for Pastor. Some of the points that Pastor was saying was some of the points that I was, wanted to articulate. And he's back. I don't know if he wants to finish his point. So I'll allow him to finish his point.
Yes.
Yeah,
Social
I was
gospel.
saying, I don't know, I'm having some challenges, but I was saying that there's a wide spectrum of views on this whole matter of involvement in politics. And because of the social gospel element that sometimes put aside some of the principles of the Bible, you might say, people have tried to steer away from being involved. But let me just say that Jesus, when we look at him, if you were to go to Luke chapter 3 and chapter 4, you see that Jesus was intricately involved in a
Okay, I'll keep it going. Larry, if you can call Dr. Scavella and
Yes,
ask him to log in
I'll
using
do
his
that.
laptop. Wait, hold on. Ask him to request.
He's having some challenges with his laptop. So
Oh,
I'll talk to him. So go ahead, Big Rock.
okay. All right.
And I think it's politics again because I think he's using an Apple laptop, and not a Mac. You know what I'm saying? But it's a pleasure to be on the program, as customary. But as I always tell people, why am I a Seventh-day Adventist?
Mhm.
Choice that I made to be a Seventh-day Adventist when my father was a Catholic and my mother is an open Bible. I choose to become a Seventh-day Adventist. It's politics. Everything that we do, that we have choices in, is politics. I remember, growing up at, Spanish Town SDA Church. And the first thing that I wanted to become was a lawyer. And my same brothers and sisters at church said that if you become a lawyer, you're not going to heaven. And I can recall as a youngster, if you hear that you're not going to heaven, it's very drastic, to know. And I shed the idea of becoming a lawyer. And now General Conference, as lawyers, a department full of lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember when I was toying with the idea as to what should I do, should I venture in politics? And I said, I'm gonna separate myself from Jamaica. Went to La Sierra, basically, God, you have to show me 5 signs that I should go in politics. And I got those 5 signs. It's my personal relationship with God. And I always tell people that, yes, God take care of his own. God, instruct you in the path. So back in the days, I used to complain that my country is not running the way or I want it to run. And I complained and said that, listen, there's too many corrupted person in politics. So what I used to do is to sit on the sidelines, is to write to the editor, to call the radio station, to complain on my veranda with my friends, and I was not getting involved in the process to try to change the process, not allowing the process to change me. I held on to that dearly. And I can recall even the posture, and I'm sure that's where Dr. Scavella was going, even the posture of the church. You realize that even the Garden of Eden, God placed Adam and Eve to govern, over the creatures. That's politics. There are many politicians in the Bible. Even the church that we're a part of, we elect presidents. Larry Green was a youth director. We voted those persons to go into office to serve us, the people. So yes, while God is the ultimate, and I try not to include God with politics because God is divine. And although, yes, we seek God for guidance, but God set up rulers and God take down rulers. So there has to be persons that are assigned to rule the affairs of our country that satisfies, certain policies that we're a part of. I'm blessed and privileged to represent the people of Southeast St. Catherine. And many of them are online watching as we speak. Very beautiful people, and they know what I stand for. They also keep me in line, say, yes, while I depend on God for guidance and I have my own personal morals and values, I have to answer to him individually. But, I chose this route because I know that I can bring a difference. I know that I can serve the people, and I know that God is on my side as well.
Yeah, amen. I have a question. There's something that you said I would like for you to follow up on. So, you said you quoted the scripture, right, or referred to the scripture that God sets up and takes down, right? The political and government parties, or people, individuals. So, would you say that every person that has become a governmental leader or political leader has been placed there by God?
I would say that. I would say,
So,
bear in mind that I'm not in a position to judge anyone. right? Because God knows what he wants for his people, right? God knows. My seat, for example, my political party that I represent, I might not agree with everything my political party does, right? I not agree with all the ideology, but it fits my ideology. And as a matter of fact, my political party has never won the seat in over 50 years, right? So God knows what he's doing. God set up rulers and God take down rulers. And God assigned people at that particular time, to govern his people. At the end of the day, you have to get that guidance from God. And, my little son is here now, peeping and watching, and he wants to say hi to the world. He was there looking. But basically, God assigned, to do his handiwork. And I'm assigned at this point in time, in this side of the vineyard, to ensure that I lead his people to the promised land. And that's how I view politics. That's how I view, the role that you will play in politics.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your response. Eileen, if you can respond to whichever question, really the original question, which was here, I'll
Or the
report
follow-up.
again, which is dealing with just, Christians in politics. Why are you involved? Or if you want to deal with the second question that I asked, Robert, then you are more than welcome to. And that was does God put everyone who's in political and governmental power? Has God put them all there? And those that were taken down, has God taken them all down? So either one of those questions you may respond to.
Okay. I really appreciate the two distinguished gentlemen that went before me, because I wanted to jump in there and I was like, oh, they're so good. And I loved what the gentleman said earlier about you get two people together. That's politics. And I was like, I have never heard that before, but that makes so much sense.
You're right.
And let's say there was some politics going on in the Garden of Eden, right? And I just want to call up Deuteronomy 8. Just started out, probably the whole chapter, but it says, every commandment which I command you today, you must be careful to observe, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land of which the Lord swore to your fathers. And so, this is going into the land, the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness and taking a hold of the land. And I just would say that it's going on now, where the whole world has been watching. Our brothers here who are in Jamaica and the Bahamas and the whole world, China, they have been watching us and calling, I guess, the new president to congratulate him. But maybe I should not talk about politics currently, but I'm just saying,
that's a platform. That's all right. That's okay.
You're good. You're safe. You're welcome. Comments are welcome.
Kind of an answer to both 1 and 2, because I wrote things down, is that God gave us a brain and he gave us common sense. And when we see things that are going wrong, we need to say something. I mean, we can talk to the TV, but we need to talk to other people to make those changes. Otherwise, like my husband says, who is not a Christian, he denies everything. We're praying about that. But he says, if you cannot get involved and have an opinion in politics, then you can't complain about anything. So we need to step out and go on Facebook, but also go to, make a change, make an effect in your local, get involved in local politics, something I've never really even thought about.
I mean, I know you have something else to say, but I want to highlight something that you just said, that it bears a false witness to people outside of the Christian community when we have an opinion, but we say, oh, we don't, it's not biblical to be involved in politics, right? I mean, you turn people off from how much you really care, how much you really love, right? When you say, oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty in the messiness of people. I mean, because that's politics, government, that's what it is. right? And so I hear you saying that for your husband, you know, it's not really a good testimony to him when Christians are like, I don't want to, I'm not, you know, and then try to use the Bible to justify the lack of being involved.
Can I
Go
push
ahead, Elaine.
something
You
in
had
there?
something else you wanted to go ahead. Let's
Can
let
I,
Elaine do her second point, and then Rob, I would love to hear from you some more.
The second question, should pastors or other Christians use their platform of influence to speak on political issues, and what limitations exist?
Oh, we're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, so Robert, go ahead, and then we'll move on to the second question.
Sorry.
if my good brothers, and this is my beautiful wife, Kristen,
Hi.
if my beautiful brothers, you know, Pastor Larry Green and Dr. Scavella, you know, they will tell you as well that in my view, and this is my personal view, Dr. Scavella, that the role of a pastor is similar to the role of a politician, PP, right? So the pastor, in my view, canvas for souls, soul winning. And the role of the politician is the canvas for soul that will lead to votes, right? So it's similar. And, you know, more will come out on that statement in next question. But just to say that, you know, basically, you are called at this time to lead a section of the society. You know, it's politics in the church, because there is politics in the church, right? And, you know, I learned majority of my politics in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, right? Politics in the church.
Tell the truth.
And every 4 years, we have quadrennium, where we elect officers to serve us at the general conference level, which include the divisions, and at the conference level.
Yeah.
And every 5 years, we have different pastors. And if we are zooming hope and we talk truth, we will know that if Pastor Larry Green is a president of the conference, and Pastor Larry Green does not like Dr. Scavella, then you know he's going to a bush church.
That's the truth.
That's politics. I was just talking truth, you know?
Yeah.
So basically, you know, politics is everywhere. And then at the end, this is a point I wanted to say as well. The same, my brothers and sisters will tell you, do not get involved in politics. Do not vote. But why are we leaving the politics for persons who are undesirable to lead us? Why aren't we with the good ideas, the clean and pure ideas, making that call? And at the end of the day, we are accountable. And, you know, I always tell people as well, my colleague, if you don't vote, you don't have a talk for the next 5 years. Yeah. And that's a reality. Yeah. You have to govern your land. You know where you want to be. And as a matter of fact, I must say, even in Jamaica, you know, if it wasn't for a former minister who was around the table at a point in time, the Flexi-Week policy would have been an hindrance to Seventh-day Adventists. You know, so we have to be around the table. We have to craft our policies that will satisfy us. I won't mention that detail, just to put it out there.
I would like for maybe Aileen to chime into this, and then I'll bring up another question. This is coming from Colin Major. Of course, you know, he is our social media contributor. And as I shout him out, I want to shout out all of our social media family. And if you have not yet, right now, just click subscribe or like. All right. So I want you to do that. 41 persons. If you have not subscribed, do so right now. So, but Colin Major asked the question. He said, does it serve the cause of Christ for Christians to use political influence to improve society? So if you could just jump right into this and see if you could answer this question from our social media guests. Aileen?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, when we see, and maybe, I don't know if I should even say any names, but a few years ago, I saw something going on. I think the whole nation did, the whole world was. And
Yeah.
I was debased. I don't know if that's the right word to use. I was very disappointed because whoever our leader is going to be, they have to have a certain measurement of morality and prudence and respect. And I did not see that in a particular candidate. So I spoke out, and boy, did I get attacks from people within the church. And it is so divisive, even now. But yes, you must speak out, because like it's being repeated in the notes here and amongst ourselves, is that if we don't say something, then and take a vote, make a vote, then we cannot complain about anything. So we must.
Awesome. So in the same breath, then I want to extend the discussion to this question: should pastors or other Christians use their platform of influence to speak on political issues? And if yes, what are the limitations, if any, that should be drawn?
Yeah, so Saba, if you can pick
Um,
that up.
yes,
All right.
yes, Saba.
I think.
So I would say, to take like a half a step back, I think that we have to be, I think there's the question is concerning, because oftentimes certain people can take what the pastor says as being the gospel. Not everything your pastor says is thus saith the Lord. And we have to encourage lay people to be as knowledgeable as we might assume some of our leaders are, because to my knowledge, there are no limitations on what pastors can say, or anyone of influence, about their political views, be they direct or passive. You know, we've seen leaders, we've seen Doug Batchelor as somebody who is a very prominent figure, who has, I would say, beginning maybe five years ago or so, kind of tipped his hat, maybe not blaring endorsement, but has used his platform to highlight certain things about the current president in a way that could allude to, maybe this guy's not so bad. So I don't know that we should expect for pastors or anybody of influence to not show their card. I think the other part is, while absolutely pastors should preach the truth, we forget that now pastors, everything they say at times is considered to be their pulpit, where maybe that's just a social media post, right? So again, pastors, people of influence, I think it really just ups the ante for the lay people to be critical thinkers, to be aware, and to also understand the humanity of pastors, and their political perspectives and what their needs are, because we are going to be hearing about these things. We're only going to have more exposure to people's lives and thoughts. And I think, to the point that Robert made earlier, yes, I remember hearing like, oh, lawyers are liars, you're not going to go to heaven. Like, there was a lot of divisive talk from church people that at the age I thought was suggestive of thus saith the Lord, right? Because of this person's proximity to who I thought God was. And so I think definitely pastors have to own their reach and influence. But again, I think there's just a lot more lay people who also have to own their ability to discern and still understand that they have their own personal convictions to work out, and not just deflect to, well, my pastor said. Then nobody should do that.
And that's a profound that's a profound point right there. And I see. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. And here's this point. by Krisha Campbell, I believe. I hope I get your name correctly.
Kershaw.
So how do we proceed beyond that? And you have outlaid that. You know, that there need to be an increased drive. Kershaw. Oh, an increased need. Increased drive to educate our members and leaders about the impact of politics within and without our church. And that's important because while the pastor can use his various platform or leaders, and we have seen that the member or who are those who are listening need to now do their own analyze what was being said. So this is my pastor is supporting this man or this woman, but while he's doing so, what is the impact that this man or this woman within the political arena is having on the greater number of people in terms of their well-being? And that is important because sometimes as a pastor, I might have a political party and it does not matter what the party is doing or what the person is doing. I am going to have that bias because someone said pastors are human, prophets are human too, right? So we need to bear that in mind. And Robert, you make this point earlier, which I believe is profound, that you actually see God because you sense it's a call, right? And if politics is a call like other areas within society, it means therefore that the church has a responsibility to also give that proper stewardship. You're saying something, Robert, just before Saba had spoken.
Yes, and I like to go back to a previous question that was asked briefly. Should we use our influence, as our, I remember when I was getting baptized, one of my baptism vow is that we should use our influence to benefit the church. That's one of our vow, right, Pastor? Pastor London, yes. Pastor Green, that's one of our vow, right? Yes. So we should use our influence. In terms of pastors being using the pulpit, I'm not in agreement with that, right? Because although I stated earlier, Saba, that the role of a pastor is to win souls for the kingdom. The role of a politician is to win souls that will lead to vote. And I'm blessed to be doing a PhD. I'm a marketer by profession as well, Saba. So I'm also doing a PhD in political marketing, right? So the reality is the pastor should use the pulpit to preach the word, to the dying congregation, right? And the role of a politician is to bring hope to the people, right? So I'm saying this to say, nothing is wrong, in my view, for the pastor to use the pulpit to encourage the congregation to go there and vote. In my view, nothing wrong with that. Educating them, as Kershaw said earlier, educate the church. Your right to vote. Persons died for us to vote today. So they should educate the congregation to go there and vote, but not to vote for a political person or a political party. And everybody has their biases. Everybody, yes or no, you will have your bias. So persons knew from before that they wanted Biden to win. Persons knew before that they wanted Trump to win. Some went out to vote, some didn't. But everybody has a bias. But encourage your congregation to go there and vote. But don't encourage them to vote for a particular person or a particular political party.
Yeah, I think that's the go ahead, Saba.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I completely agree. I don't know about the political debate in other contexts outside the United States, but I do know here there is a weaponizing of pastors using, or just political parties using the Bible as criteria for why you would be in one camp, and basically everybody else being that of the Antichrist, right? Like it's a very visceral gaslighting tool used. I would say both sides do it, but I think there's a couple points on one side that make it as though everybody who would agree, you have to take everything wholesale on one side, or else you are really despicable. And so that is where a lot of the tension is for us, because you would think that the Bible would lead us to similar conclusions in terms of how we look at things, and they don't. I actually sometimes think that the fact that we look at the Constitution and we break off into pretty much two different groups, or maybe there's other tertiary groups, but other communities look at the Bible and there's hundreds of denominations that come up with different interpretations of the same kind of text, right? So that is my only hesitation with pastors, because I don't think we're just talking about pastors who look like those of us on this panel. I think we're talking about, if all pastors kind of do it, what that means for the body, which is a weaponizing of, like, even that text that was shared. I kind of had a visceral response to, God sets up kings and sets them down. Like, that's typically, at least in my context, used as a reason to not have a critical thing to say about the leader that is in place. Right. And so it's like, well, God says things, so we can't say anything about them. And we have to just take what they do as being thus saith the Lord. And that's where I completely disagree with that. I think the intention of that text, and also, again, in the United States context, I think it also makes it interprets the will of the majority to be the will of God. And I don't think that's biblical, right? It might be true that this is understand, but God's never been with the majority. So I think we also have to be sensible about how we understand or interpret the kings of old with the presidents of today, and therefore how we manage our expectations of them. But that's kind of going towards how sometimes when we were using the text, and which sometimes pastors would use, right? It is not always apples to apples. And again, I cannot underscore enough how critical it is for everyone to be just thorough in their interpretation. These are important matters.
I follow you, and you're on point. And this need really, because even when God sets up kings in the Bible time, you think about Nebuchadnezzar, he pulls him down, and even Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were able to say, hey, guess what? You're doing something, but we can't subscribe to that, even though God was the one who set him up, right? So within context, we must look at these things. I want, Dr. Scavella seemed to, he's back. Yes, I want Dr. Scavella to just follow through with this. Because, yes, Robert was saying that, pastors shouldn't use their platform to say, go vote for that person or that person. It's okay. But sometimes, even as we speak to social issues, especially, he's gone, so someone else could relate to it. When we look at social issues, many times when you're speaking to social issues, you see one side, which is on the far left, and another side on the far right. And as you begin to speak on these social issues, you might see one party favored over the other. So how do you speak on these issues without giving the idea, based upon my take on this social issue, this is the best direction to go? Or do you just leave it alone?
Well, I don't think you should.
I guess Aileen,
Yeah, I don't think you should leave it alone.
Ahead.
So I'll give you, and then maybe we can even have a discussion. The one where Christ overturned the tables in the temple. I've heard more of that in the last few years about, and I never thought about it, but that this was a social issue. He was fighting for the underprivileged and so forth, and so he was speaking out against social injustice, taking advantage of the poor. And you talk to somebody on the other side of it is, oh no, has nothing to do with that, or they won't say that, but they'll say, no, this was a house of prayer, and they were selling things, and they were just not following the rules, is basically my take on it. But I stand for it. It was social injustice. And Jesus, I think, was very political. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it was both. I'm sorry. I've been sitting here like, I want to jump in. But it was both. I mean, Aileen, I would love for you to finish. Not, this isn't to cut you off from completing your thought, but like, it was both, that Jesus was outraged that people were using, were using religion, was using God, his father, right, to oppress the underdog, right? So it wasn't one or the other, it was both. It was that this was supposed to be a house of prayer that people were using to oppress, that people were using to oppress. And
Don't
so
we see the same thing now?
if you couldn't sacrifice, if you didn't have the money to sacrifice an ox, which is a cow, okay. So I remember I told people one day that sacrifice, they barbecue beef, and they were like, there was no beef. I was like, what you think an oxen is? It's a cow. Okay. So anyway, that if you didn't have the money to afford an oxen, to afford a cow, then you can use a pigeon instead, or you can use grain instead. Go back, read your Bibles, it's in Leviticus, okay? That if you were too poor to give certain types of sacrifices, then you could sacrifice something that cost less, that was more easily accessible to the person who didn't have the financial means. And what these people were doing was, it was kind of like what people do at the movies, for those who go to the movies, for those who what's another place, you go out to convenience stores, it's more expensive in convenience stores where the majority of the people in that neighborhood are poor, but it's cheaper if you go to the grocery store in the nicer neighborhood. Why, it was that kind of thing. But these people were using religious things to oppress and overprice the things that people needed to commit sacrifices to the Lord in prayer. Right. And so it was both. Anyways, I'll sit back down. But it was both.
And that's happening right now, Pastor. Isn't that? You go to the neighborhoods, of poor neighborhoods, and everything, you get a loaf of bread and it's $5, and you go to a regular grocery store like, I don't know, Winco or something like that, and you get it for $1, the same brand. So it just continues today. So we do need to speak out, because what I wanted to say about politics in government is that it's a necessity, because we if we don't speak out, it will continue. So we need to do our part to that's why I say get involved in local politics, and I'm talking to myself too, but get involved in the community, because it can impact your life tomorrow, if not today.
Yeah.
I wanted to close the loop on the question. There was a question about, I think it was basically how we as Christians kind of work through the social justice issues. Like, maybe if you're clumped in on one side, you're kind of not in support of an issue on the other side. And I'm not a conservative when it comes to politics, and the issue of abortion, quite frankly, is a really difficult one as a Christian to vote on one side, understand the implications. Like, I don't. We're all, hopefully all adults on this, right? So I think oftentimes I'm clear on my convictions on the topic, in terms of whether or not I want someone to be imprisoned if they take this particular action. That's the debate. It's not a debate of a celebration of that particular act. At least that's my interpretation, right? But I think that if for every person, and I will also say that some of these debates that we have, that happen on social media take away that ability for people to really talk through some of these specifics on a one-to-one basis and say like, yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, these are my convictions. Yes, like, you know, because I kind of feel like there's Christians that I know who are on the right who care about the kids in cages, right? But they've also kind of made their estimations that led them to another conclusion. And so I think for those things, as Christians, we should be not trying to demonize people. As I don't do a good job. I actually call the current president of the United States Nebuchadnezzar. But I know that's my own position, right? But I think that if you know somebody who you are like, oh, you know, this person's a Christian, how can they be on that side? That's an opportunity to kind of reconcile with them one-on-one, to ask, not like over social media.
That's a good point.
But ask.
Right, ask that, because I do believe that most people have a thought or a reason why, and it's not as divisive as how it's portrayed by that other side. So I think that's the opportunity that we have as Christians. Listen, I'm still never going to agree because I know my convictions, but I think that's one of those areas where when we kind of clash of like, so you're a Christian and you're, you know, for abortion, like, come on, you know what I'm saying? Like there, we have to be comfortable with the fact that politics is not perfect. And that's in anywhere humans are, be those where two or three are gathered, there's a problem. Every profession, every profession, there's never a perfect outcome. And so that's what kind of gives me peace, that like, this is the best kind of scenario we could come up with, and let that be the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to segue.
We're out of time.
We're going to move right into that third question right now. But I just want to acknowledge the presence of Christine. It's good to have you on. It's good to see you. That's Mrs. Miller. It's good to see you as also a Christian with a politician in not only in your house but in your life. All right. So you can feel free to chime in. Dr. Sorry, viewers, Dr. Scavella is having some serious challenges in getting on. So please, London, take us into question number 3.
Yes. So our third question is there any biblical counsel for young Christian people who want to pursue a career in politics? Right? That's one part of the question. You don't have to answer both parts. This is the second part. What positive and negative impact have Christians made on politics and government? So we dealt with, should we get involved? You know, how do we get involved? Right? So now it's what have been both, and we kind of dealt with it some, what's the biblical counsel to those who are interested in getting involved? What biblical references can you go to? And what are both the positive and negative impacts of Christians getting involved? And Robert, if you can start us off, that would be great.
I think, you know, I'm basically biased to the question because I'm basically in politics.
Dogs in their background.
The reality is, you know, a person
Robert,
must
do you
have
dogs in your background?
a.
Oh no, okay, that was Larry. All right, go ahead.
A person must have a passion to serve the people. Okay. That's the main thing. You know, if you really want to be involved in politics, that's something you must have. You must have, you know, tolerance to deal with all sector of people because you are going to interact, you know, especially politics in Jamaica. You know, Jamaica politics might be different from the US. You know, the US, you go state by state, community by community, you have this big mass meeting. You know, in Jamaica is hands-on, it's person to person. It is, you know, door to door. So you're going to meet all different type of persons. You're going to, you know, you must have a passion. You must love people. You know, you have to listen to their, you know, their cry and try to solve them as best as possible. You know, you must have a calling to serve. And that is very important. Just like how Dr. London, you have a calling to be a pastor. You must have a calling to be a politician.
Yeah.
Because it's not an easy role. I was telling a friend just this week that I've assisted a lot of members of parliament in Jamaica. But now I am in the chair as a member of parliament. It's a total different ball game. A lot of persons come to you, with different needs and all of that. And the resources are limited. And using politics to get rich, so to speak, then it's a wrong profession. Because sometimes people use, Aileen can tell you, sometimes people use their own personal resources, to satisfy the needs of constituents. You must have a calling, you must have your own morals and values that guide you. So for example, I do not attend meetings on Sabbath. I do not campaign on Sabbath. And when persons will reprimand me or chastise me for not doing that, I still hold my own, and I won by over 1,000 votes, compared to the other person that campaigned on the Sabbath. So once you have that connection, once you have that moral compass, that drives you. I'm not perfect, but I'm striving for perfection. But there's just certain things I would not do, certain things I would not, and it's not an easy profession. And remember, you have different persons with different ideas, different ways of thinking in terms of policy making, but you have to seek advice from your constituents that put you there to serve them. And at the same time, you have your own, personal ideology of stuff. So the Saba used the example of abortion. Say, for example, I'm just using an example. My constituency said there's a debate in Parliament, and the constituency said we should legalize abortion. I might have my different views on abortion. I might believe abortion is for, persons that are raped or persons who have health issues. But broad scale abortion, I might have my individual view on the matter. What should I do? I'm my constituency, I should do it. And then I have my own personal view. But what guides me as an individual and what I believe will be better for my country, Jamaica. So, I would encourage persons, you must possess those qualities, those criteria, if you want to get involved in politics. And it's not a better rules, and
that's good. Something I'm trying to remember it actually. Something that the thing that stood out to me the most is that you're saying really young person or not so young person, you want to get involved in politics, it needs to be a calling. You don't need to get into it if you're money hungry or power hungry, because that's where politicians by and large get a bad reputation. That we kind of just label most, if not all, politicians. Oh, they're all corrupt at some point, or right, because people go into it for the sake of power, for the sake of money. And so, as a Christian who's interested in getting into politics, make sure that it's a calling from God, because it's not easy. But also, that's foundational. Make sure that it's a calling for God, and try to safeguard yourself against being power hungry and money hungry. Saba, you unmuted yourself. I assume that means you have something to contribute.
Yeah, I think fundamentally the Bible is very clear on examples of people who are in positions of governmental power. So you have Daniel, you have Joseph, you have people who were very close to power, who work with the worldly resources of a geographic area, who advised, who were also clearly men of God, right? Esther, it's like these are people who, while Esther was not a political figure and needing to run for office, she was aware of political power and used it for forms of advocacy. So what I will say is, to any young person considering any career, one, politics is a part of absolutely everything that you will do to feed yourself. And being in favor with and understanding how power is assessed and how promotions are had is really key to success. And I don't think people should shy away from that. I think having a strong character, being rooted in your principles. I also do not participate, the same principles that would guide you in politics would guide you in marketing. It could be said that God made no provisions for any of us to be in the marketing field and to do a lot of things that we are quite frankly required or are needed to do in this world and to be part of the vineyard. I think having competency is important. So I think that, again, to dare to be a Daniel, I think, is to dare to be a person of strong conviction, and for that not to be a contradiction to in being involved with people in power. I don't think to be the child of the king of the universe, we shouldn't have any hesitation to step towards any leader or any person of power in this world. I think that should embolden us to walk fully as understanding who God is, and being clear, I think, to your point about walking in your calling, but that not being it not being a contradiction to being involved with the work of the people. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes the way in which we think about ourselves as a church group and the world being everybody else, we are not as in tune with the needs of our neighbor who is not Seventh-day Adventist. And politicians are, because of the nature of their work. They're very in knowledgeable about that. So I think that's something that's powerful that could change how we minister, quite frankly, is to understand the problems in our communities. So it's a huge opportunity, and I love to see more and more people getting involved.
That's a really great point. I really appreciate that last point that you made about sometimes in our Adventist bubbles, we don't know what's going on with our neighbor. It's hard to love our neighbor and serve our neighbor. We don't know what's going on with our neighbor. But for the Christian politician, or even the Adventist politician or government person who's fulfilling a government office, you have to know what's going on with your neighbor. And so that adds something to the gospel ministry that all of us as Christians are to be involved in. Aileen, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, I agree with Saba and everyone else, is that when I went to go answer question 3, I let my daughter read it, and she said, the whole Bible, the whole Bible, So we do need to be careful, though, because the Bible is filled with good and bad, right? Those are stories, examples. It's just not a story. It's the truth. And I just look at King David, King Solomon, and even King Saul, the first king, so we're going to be involved and locally, I mean, it's probably not the best example, but we got Ben Carson. He's, and Chaplain Black, in the Senate. So we can be influenced. Yeah, he's a great guy. But I'm just saying,
we like Chaplain Black.
Yeah, Chaplain Black. But I'm just saying that we can influence so many people.
Ben Carson's a great guy too.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
I've met Chaplain Black. I haven't met Carson. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Aileen. We got caught up in your examples. But go ahead. I don't want you to feel cut off. Please.
Oh, no, I was pretty much finished. I was just saying that we have to be careful as Christians to a message to our young people, as if we feel somebody mentioned that if you feel a passion and called to it, you should. But if you are coming in as a young person, just be careful, be prayerful. I guess we don't pray enough. I know that
we don't listen when we pray enough.
Pardon?
We talk when we pray, but we don't listen to what God has to say.
Right, exactly. But I've been praying, but I have not been listening enough to God. I just complain to him. And sometimes he does tell me, just, silence is golden, that old song. Yeah, so I have to learn how to shut my mouth. And I promised people I would not embarrass them, so I'll behave.
No. Good stuff.
Chris,
I was hoping, I was gonna piggyback on the general consensus of everyone about politicians being in the Bible. God ordained a lot of the politicians in the Bible. The difference that I wanted to point out is that, okay, sorry, we have a meltdown, is that we have to keep that blinder on for God. I feel like we don't need to segregate this profession and make it seem as if, listen, all of us in all of our different professions, I'm a nurse and there's politics. I have to advocate for the patients and for my colleagues as well. So there is politics everywhere, but you still got to be God focused. And I think that is the key element. That is what we would like to know that is happening if you as a Christian go into politics, because you're there for a purpose. And piggybacking off what Rob said about having that calling, I am supportive of Robert in particular for this position as a politician, because I met him when he was young, and I see consistency in him when he was younger. And I see the consistency, how he advocates for human rights, how he gets work done, how he is
I think she's saying resourceful.
resourceful. Like the Lord literally made him special for this position. And I say that to him because, like he described, it is a lot. It is a lot. But I see him come home and he holds it together. I see him go every day passionate about helping others. So I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to support this. I'm going to support it.
And this is something that I should say as well, that, you know, this is a discussion we had before even we got married. Because before we got married, I told her that I am venturing in politics. You know, it's very time consuming. You know, it takes a lot of time. It might deprive family time, which I try to give my family time because that is the first ministry, right? So even my constituents know that the Sabbath hours is family time. And that's all she asks for, you know? Sunset Friday to sunset Sabbath. You know, they know that's my family time. So the reality is that if you're venturing in politics and planning to get married, it's a discussion that you need to have, you know, which is very important because it takes a lot. And one must have thick skin. Thick skin is very important because persons will say stuff to you and, you know, you have to be very respectful always and respect everybody's views.
Yes, yes, yes. Eileen, I didn't fully read what you put in the in here. Did you want to say that out loud before we moved on to our fourth point?
Oh, I was just saying that to us that it's something to consider, the continuing of the conversation into what currently is going on in the United States right now, with one person not conceding and then the other one continuing to plan, and I see a hope, but what I meant was as Seventh-day Adventists, we see a president that will be taking place who is a Catholic, and that we need to, I've heard, we need to honor that because this will bring the coming of Christ. It's just kind of something that might be interesting to pursue.
Sure. I've heard that said. You know, we don't. I mean, I don't feel comfortable saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but that is a possibility for sure. Yeah, that's a possibility for sure. So as we move on into our fourth discussion point, I want to say that I appreciate the Millers for offering that tidbit to say, hey, if you want to get involved in politics, you want to get involved in government, and you desire to be married or you are married, then having that conversation with your spouse is important because it's a lot of work. It can be heavy. I think many professions are. And so it's just to say that just like it is for the pastor, as it is for the doctor, for the nurse, for the whatever your job is, it is also true for the politician and for the government official. And so be aware of those things as God is leading you, if God is leading you into such a position. And so now our first discussion point, Larry, are you trying to say something?
Yeah. Yes. Just a statement as you do that, because when we look at politics and politicians as Christians, we should not be hurried to view politicians or um, government or politics um, just in the light of prophecy, because there have been politicians and politics and government throughout history. And when God comes, there still will be a government, only that He will be ruling. And many times, what happened from 1 4 year to the next 4 year, we tie prophecy so much to who is elected. So we missed out, the great truths of Scripture. And last statement. My personal belief is that it does not matter who is running a government. That's not what will dictate the return of Christ. According to the Bible, the return of Christ is tied to the preaching of the gospel. And what we have now in politics like no time before. For example, again, I will not say no time before, but what we're having again is that Christians are being involved in these arenas. And that is also for the proclamation of the gospel. Relating to Big Rob, knowing him going through school and knowing his character and what he stands for, I can see the power of him being in that position preaching. So whichever government is in at a given time, that's JLP, right? So whichever government is in at a given time, it is important for Christians not to so much be quick to tie prophecy to the government, but to see it as an opportunity to preach and stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace for all persons. So that's my little take as you go into the wrap-up question.
I agree. I fully agree that with each new president, with each new term, with each new move in the world, we make assumptions, and I think it's good to watch and be vigilant, but we should be careful coming to conclusions for sure. And so our unless the Lord has come to you in a vision or a dream to tell you, then I need you to tell the rest of us. But if that hasn't happened and you just assuming, let us know that it's an assumption, okay? Especially us as Christians, as ministers. As I said earlier today, not on this platform but on another. As soon as you accepted Christ and decided that you were going to be a Christian, you became a minister. You may not have the calling of a minister, but you are a minister. And so be aware of how your testimony impacts and influences your community and those outside of your community. And so, Aileen, if you can respond to this to start us off, please share a message of hope to the Christians who have gotten involved in politics and realize that they may never fully see the desired changes until Jesus Christ returns. I mean, if you can respond to the Christian person who said, I've gotten involved, I thought I was gone, do like in Acts and flip the world upside down, right? And now that they're in it, it's like, okay, I made some positive changes. Praise the Lord. God used me. But the full changes that I'm looking for, I'm seeing may not be actualized on this side. If you can give a message of hope to that person.
I would say, in my opinion, November 3rd, 2020. And that's, you know what? The American people said, We want to change. And that's just the beginning. We got a lot of work ahead of us. And so I would just say we fought for democracy. Democracy won. And where you see that there needs to be some changes, you need to get involved in it. Whether on the local level, speaking out, your social media, get into your community, make a change in your community through your church. And so I really see our church, I'm not talking about Sharon Seventh-day Adventist Church, but all Seventh-day Adventists or all Christian churches, we are that light in that community so we can make a change. So be encouraged.
All right. I hear you. I hear you saying be a light on the hill. Don't be discouraged. Do what you can with what God has given you, where you are. All right. Saba, if you can respond next, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for having me on the panel. I think it's an important topic. I would say to young people, this work will never be done this side of heaven. But I do like to remind people that Earth is in fact our home. We often say, "Oh, heaven is our home." We're only going to be in heaven for 1,000 years. Then we're coming right back down here. All right.
So renewed, though.
This idea, I mean, it'll be renewed, but it's, ultimately, I love this saying, the grass is greener where you water it. And I think about Joseph, who, for 7 years was putting grain away. That's a long time. As a young, 7 years ago was a better time in American history. That was a long time ago, right? So putting in the work, it's not going to be necessarily miracles overnight. And, you're going to be like Daniel, you're going to interpret dreams, and leaders are not going to listen to you, quite frankly. So I think in the same way that we see God clearly struggling with us as his children to get us to listen, we should expect that even our human efforts in improving the world are very limited, because again, God has given us choice as humans in how we work with him, or whether we work, how we worship him, if we worship him. And he's also given us that choice to manage amongst each other. And the only other thing I would say is there are some people, and I wish Dr. Scavella was still on, because the way I've always interpreted religious liberty, and how I didn't talk about this, but I was born and raised in Bering Springs, so in a relatively conservative Adventist bubble in the United States. I've always interpreted that as being giving Americans the right to choose their religious behavior, or none at all, right? And so when I think about governing and being in politics, it's not about legislating to be in alignment with my personal views, because then that wouldn't be religious liberty. And that's actually what, as I understand it, to be the opposite of what we would want, because the majority would say, all right, Sunday is the day, and that's it, right? So that is the tension. And I think that's probably the key word. If you're going to go into politics, if you're going to really be in community with any group of humans, is to understand how to manage the tension and move slowly, hopefully in the right direction, but to not lose hope because you are involved. So that's my well wishes, and that's young and old, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Until Jesus returns.
Right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Rob, if you can close us out, or be the last panelist to respond to this same statement.
I know you all gave me 30 seconds. I'll try to beat in 30 seconds. It varies. People have different preference. People support the Democrats, while some support the Republicans. Some will support the Jamaica Labour Party, while some support the People's National Party. Everybody has a free will to support who they want to support, but basically be your own.
In the Bahamas, DNA or FNM.
Which is right. Be your own.
Just for the Bahamian
respect each other's opinion. At the end of the day, basically, my political mentor is the Prime Minister of Jamaica. He's a very good Prime Minister. I would want to emulate him, but I can't because we are two different persons and we have our own, unique ways of doing stuff. And he's an Adventist as well at my home church, Spanish Town SDA Church. But the reality is, yes, you went in there, you believe it can change the world. And then when you reach there, you realize the reality is there with limited resources. But the little that you can do, ensure that you do, and ensure that you do it well, and ensure that you leave your footprints in the sand. It will never be perfect. You will never be able to do everything until the advent. And we have to bear that in mind. But in our little way, whatever we can do it with our might.
Yeah. Yeah. And know that your work is impacting someone, right? I mean, it reminds me of, this text that I preached on today, Robbie just made it come back to my mind, is that it's in Galatians. And well, there's one in Galatians, there was one in Galatians and one in First Corinthians. Anyway, it says that and it's a political, I didn't even think it's a political. So there's a text, sorry, real quick. I'll be quick, I promise. So there's a text that talks about, Paul says that to the Jew, I become a Jew, right? Is that not what politicians have to do? Right? To the Jew, I become a Jew. To those that are under the law, I become like one under the law, right? And to those who are weak, I become weak. And it's like, I do all of this. I make myself a servant, even though I'm free, right? This is all in the context. This is what Paul is saying. I make myself a servant, even though I'm free, so that some may be saved. Not everybody, not everyone you're trying to make the changes for will accept the changes, right? And that's the work of Christ, right? That Christ wishes that all should be saved and none should perish, but we know that some will, right? And so be encouraged as you are in politics, knowing that it will positively impact some, that it will be even salvific for some. It may not be that way for everybody. And don't count it a failure, because Christ is not a failure. And some people will still be lost, even though Christ was I believe, was the only perfect person that has ever existed and will ever exist. And though there will be there will be people that will miss the blessings that you are trying to actualize on this side and on the next. There will be people that will miss it. And so, Pastor Larry, I don't know if you have any, well, I know that you do. If you can give us our closing remarks, we can say bye to our viewers, and thank you everybody for, we still got Saba. Okay, thank you everybody. Well, you're muted, Larry, so I can't hear you. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to our panelists for being real, for giving us the responses that you have given us. Make sure to still share this.
Yeah. And right where you are, right where you are right now, like or subscribe. Like or subscribe. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, do so right now. Have mercy. Do so right now. But I was really zoomed into this. This is really where we are. And if the church or Christians just remain silent and not engaged in what is affecting people, it makes no sense. We have no purpose. And that's why we decide to have this discussion this time. And, we have had discussion before this time on social issues. Now we're having the discussion. Government has a responsibility. Politicians has a responsibility. But Christians also have a responsibility. The gospel is not only about Jesus is coming again, but the gospel is about while persons are here, while we're here, make sure that we impact the lives of people. We will never agree with everything that a political party does, or legislations, or policies. But there's one thing that Christians should be consistent at all time with, and that is make sure that Jesus is reflected in our character, in our care for others, in in just the common courtesy of being a loving human being. That it still rides, and make sure that we encourage, support, and pray for, or involved in politics, or our politicians, so that they can do the task that God has called them to. I am a pastor. London is a pastor. God has given us that calling. Um, God has also called politicians and government leaders. And we have a responsibility to help our brothers and sisters in that cause to further his work. So this has been another exciting episode of Zoom Up Live. I just want to bless the Lord for all our politicians out there and Christians. I will pray for you. London will pray for you throughout this week, especially for the United States of America right now, who is in transition to a new government with President-elect Joseph Biden. So we will continue to pray for leaders around the world, because Zoom Up Live, it is geared to infuse hope in every context around the world. So on behalf of our production team, or producer Kevin Spence, I am your host, Larry Green, and we have our co-host,
D. London Anderson.
Yes. Bye bye. See you next week.
Happy Sabbath.